Okay. All right. And I think we're going to be good here. Let's see how this goes. All right. We are all set. All right. For those that don't know, my name is Otis James. I'm a full time real estate investor out of the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm a former mortgage broker. We funded just under $1 billion in the time that I was brokering. I spent over 2 decades in the multifamily commercial industry. I exited that industry at the corporate level. I am a licensed real estate broker in California, licensed real estate broker in Georgia. I'm licensed in insurance. I'm not in the insurance business, nor do I have any desire to be, but I use insurance to leverage real estate so I can speak intelligently about it. I got licensed on the entrepreneurial side. I took $585 and created a company that went on to generate seven figures in the short time that I had it. I am a long term hold investor. I've consulted on multiple projects, domestic and abroad. I invest all over the country. I run the Four Data Points Academy, which is a real estate investing training platform that takes people from zero knowledge, and I say takes them all the way to the promised land. But we don't have an end date, so we basically people stay with us for as long as they need to until we can be sure we've turned them into real estate investors, and then they stay with us in a different capacity, and we just do some cool stuff, invest together, maybe build some stuff, or whatever we choose to do. I've done quite a few more things in the real estate space. Um, that sounds way more impressive on paper than in real life. So I won't go down the whole laundry list of those things. But when it comes to teaching real estate investing, I am qualified to do it. And I have the receipts to back it up. As many of you know, if you've been following me for any time, you know that, you know, this is my whole life. I was 3 years old going to real estate meetings with my father, and I've never stopped. So, and I'm 49 now. So let's jump into it. So we had, I was going through all of our reviews, our Yelp reviews, and looking for anything negative in our Yelp reviews because I wanted to see if there was any areas that we could improve in. So what I'll do is go. I'll go online and I'll look at my real estate broker reviews, which I look at that because people confuse it with Four Data Points Academy. They just see me, and then I'll go to the Four Data Points Academy and look at those reviews, and they're all 5 star. But you never know if people are just it's 5 stars just to be polite. So, I read a lot of the reviews to see if maybe somebody gave a 5 star, but they had some constructive criticism. Now we call it a real estate family, so people are comfortable enough. If something's not working, they know how obsessed I am about that stuff, so they'll just call me directly and say, "Hey, I was trying to do X, Y, and Z." And I couldn't get it. It wasn't as easy to manage. I'm just making something up, but it wasn't as easy to manage. And then I would just, okay, we'll examine it and then we'll see how we can improve it. Now that rarely happens. Typically, it's something like maybe we'll put out a mass email and maybe there was a spelling error or something like that. So they'll call me and give me a hard time about it. I think I had a competition one time. I said every spelling error or grammatical error you can find, I'll give you $25. So now people are conditioned to look at all the stuff we sent out. But I look at all those things, and I there's a lot of questions that I need to address, and I broke them down into categories. And these questions have to do with people getting started. There's questions about financing and budgeting. There's questions about market analysis and property evaluation. There's questions about legal and management considerations. And then there's some common concerns, right? Some of the common concerns I really want to get into because when it comes to mentorship, high cost with limited value, this was something that I kept seeing come up over and over and over again. And I never, I think if people started articulating it in a way that made me see like one of the issues that I always knew was there, but I thought was common knowledge. So when it comes to high cost and limited value, many people have reported paying, high fees, exceeding $10,000 for mentorship programs that provided information that was readily available through free or low cost resources. And that's something that I've been saying for years. It's not about the information. It's about the application of it and the support you get while you're applying it in the real world, which is why when I was building this program, I only wanted to spend about 7 or 8 weeks on the fundamentals, the stuff that everybody needs to know. But the practical application of that is what's going to take people to the next level, them doing it in the real world, us interacting, overcoming all these challenges. And I couldn't put an end date on it because there's things you're going to be learning within 30 days, within a week, and then you're still going to be learning new things within a year and a half. And I still need to be there to make sure that people are actually going to be successful in this. So that's one of the things that I'm going to address today. Another thing was aggressive upselling tactics. And this is basically a lot of what people described as this is not a lot of people, what I described. That's just the business model when you're going to these companies and they're teaching you how to invest in real estate. So, and I got some friends that are going to be joining us today. If you guys have any real estate investing questions, feel free to go ahead and come up on the live on TikTok. And if I happen to glance down, like I'll see on Clubhouse, if I glance down, I see somebody with their hand up, then I'll go ahead and bring you guys up if there's anybody in there. Again, Clubhouse, I don't schedule these rooms on Clubhouse anymore. I'll just open it up while I'm on TikTok and live streaming on the other platforms. But I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, if you guys are interested in having a look. So the first question when people are getting started is, what's the best way to invest in real estate? And for me, it's always education, right? It's the knowledge that's going to allow you to perform in environments where the cookie cutter solutions don't work. For example, you can take a course on how to utilize the BRRRR method. And if you're utilizing the BRRRR method, which is an investment strategy where you buy a property, you rehab it, you put a tenant in there, you refinance, and you repeat, you pull some of the equity out, and then you go do it again. But in areas where that doesn't work, if that's the only thing you know, then guess what? You're done. You got to go back and, to whatever job you came from because you can't put food on the table. So education is where everybody should invest, because the more education you have, the less capital you need. You understand how to structure deals creatively. You understand how to put groups together and generate revenue without you having to actively invest in real estate yourself. There's just a lot you can do. The next question was, how much capital do I need to get started? But it always depends. And the reason why I say it depends is because it depends on what you're getting started trying to do and where you live. There's properties that you can do seller financing deals on, and you can borrow the funds to improve them. And then once you've improved them and increased the value, you can leverage that to do whatever you need to do. That doesn't require a lot of capital if you understand how to do it. So anybody that says, how much money do I need to get started? It goes back to get your education first, learn all the ways to invest first, learn how to structure deals creatively. And then I think you'll be heads and shoulders above the rest. Now, again, if you guys are on TikTok, that number above my head, feel free to text any questions. I have a guide that I give away for free to people so they don't get in trouble investing in real estate. You don't have to get mentorship for it. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to pay for it. I just give it to people just to give them a place to start. The next question was, should I invest locally or consider out-of-state properties? Now, that's a valid question because locally may be cost prohibitive. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. For what I have to put down on a property out here, I can buy an apartment building in another market free and clear. So, so should I invest locally or consider out-of-state properties? Again, you're going to be restricted by the knowledge. If you don't know how to invest 2,500 miles away, then you have no choice but to invest locally. You guys on TikTok, there's 4 of y'all. Thank you for sharing the room. I appreciate it. The more people that know who I am, the more opportunities that I can create for other people. So thank you for doing that. But if you can only invest locally, that well is going to get tapped pretty quick. Real estate investing is very, very competitive. And if you are restricted by your geographical location, then you're probably not going to survive very long in the real estate investing space. So I would say to that question, should I invest locally or consider out-of-state properties? I would say learn how to invest out of state, but invest locally, if that's more convenient for you. And there is a way to invest out of state. There is a way to control a project out of state. You just have to have systems in place to do that. And some of those systems aren't very complicated. Some of them are just processes. All right. Question number 4 was, what are the pros and cons of residential versus commercial properties? So residential properties are easier to obtain. There's less competition. They're typically at a lower price point. Um, Multifamily commercial, you're not limited as far as the value goes by what some of the properties are selling for. You're only limited by the financials because multifamily commercial is valued based on the income that they generate and not what the building next door sold for. So you have more control over your destiny and you have more revenue streams, and there's just more you can do with multifamily commercial, in my opinion. But I will say again to that question, what are the pros and cons of residential versus commercial properties? I would say you need to know how to do both because a lot of what you learn when you are flipping homes or dealing on the residential side, I don't care if it's a single family home, carries into multifamily commercial. So keep in mind, 1 to 4 units is considered residential, single family home. 2 to 4 units is multifamily residential, and then 5 units and up is multifamily commercial. All right. How do I determine my investment strategy? I would say if you don't have the education, you don't determine your investment strategy because you don't know all of the strategies that are out there. You may pick one particular investment strategy and it could be cost intensive. There could be some limitations there. That's all you know. You don't really have a choice. I always go back to get the education and learn all of the strategies. I don't use one particular strategy every time, and I'm not married to one particular strategy. Just like I'm not married to a geographical location. Just like I'm not married to one one type of revenue stream. But when you have the education, you can go wherever the money's at, and then you can choose where you want to make your money from in the real estate investing space. So, to that question, how do I determine my investment strategy? You don't. And it can be very dangerous and expensive if you try to nail down a strategy before you understand what real estate investing is all about. Let me see. I'll glance at Clubhouse. It looks like nobody has any questions on there. Again, if you guys have questions, feel free to come up on stage on TikTok, and then I'll go ahead and make sure I answer those. The Instagram and Facebook, I can see your questions if you post them. They're right in front of me, so feel free to do that. Six, and again, for those that are just coming in, these are all questions that have come to me in some way, shape, or form. I've just put them all together, and I'm just going to go through all of them to give people an understanding of what real estate investing is. It's not what everybody thinks, and what real estate investing education actually should be. What are the tax implications of real estate investing? well, I'm not qualified to advise on tax matters. People that come into our real estate family, I put them in conversations with people that are qualified to do it. When I talk to those folks, it's their job to keep up with tax laws, and it's their job to make sure that I'm making the best decision with respect to tax favor. So I put people in contact with the experts. I don't get into that, but I will say this: when I go into, if I'm bringing on a new tax person or a new CPA, or I'm talking about a new tax attorney, I'll always tell them I want to accomplish three things in everything I do. Liability protection is one, tax favor is number two, anonymity is number three. So when I'm talking about where I want to be in a tax conversation, I want to accomplish tax favor, liability protection, and anonymity. That typically requires multiple entities and a more complicated legal structure. So, and also keep in mind where you start out is not typically where you're going to end up. All right. It's not typically where you're going to end up. So you'll build it over time. You don't have to have this big, complicated tax legal structure and you don't have any assets yet. So you can build it over time. And even if you make the wrong decision, there's always ways for you to correct it. So it's not the end of the world. How do I build a reliable team? Oh, that's a forgot about that one. You're talking about agents, contractors, property managers. How do you build a reliable team? Um, that is tough. That's tough. I have some training on how to hire and manage your contractors and vendors on a project. With respect to property managers, which is a property manager. If you own real estate, you're going to have a property manager on your team. I was in the property management industry. I was in the multifamily commercial industry. So I have the ability to train the people that are going to be managing my assets. But for the average person, sometimes it's going to be trial and error. For my students, I'll typically give them the questions to ask if they're taking on somebody new. And I will take a look at whatever agreement that they have with that person to see if there's any language that I feel should be added to it. So that's a common question also. Another question is, what is the Burr strategy? How does it work? So the Burr strategy, the Burr method, has actually been around for decades. And if you guys are, so can you change your LLC structure after it's been set up? Absolutely. Yeah, you can change just about anything. There's a way to correct just about anything. So don't worry about that. The Burr method is that phrase was coined by Bigger Pockets. So if you guys are real estate investing enthusiasts, Bigger Pockets is a pretty popular platform, but it's really just a process. It stands for buying the property, rehabbing the property, renting the property out, assuming that you've added value, refinancing the property, pulling some money out, and then repeating it with the money you pulled out, going and purchasing another property and doing the same thing over and over again. That's how it works. That's what the Burr method is. What happens is the people that are teaching these Burr method courses, and this is the disadvantage to teaching just one thing, because if that's how you put food on the table and you're just teaching one thing, then you're not going to spend too much time telling people why it doesn't work and when it doesn't work. So again, the Burr method is just one strategy, but keep in mind, it says you buy the property, you rehab it, you rent it out, you refinance, and you repeat. But what happens is people don't always understand that in high cost areas, when you rent it out, even in some of the highest rental markets in the country, San Francisco Bay Area, the rental income that you bring in is not enough to service the debt after you've done the refinance because it's so expensive, right? So if you don't know how to run the 4 data points, then you can get into a lot of trouble with the Burr method. I've seen a lot of people get into some really tough financial situations because they don't know how to run the 4 data points. 4 data points are 4 questions that we ask anytime we're considering a subject property. They are, what does it cost or what am I willing to pay? What does it cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? So, all right. I don't know how to do. Okay, hold on. Y'all bear with me. All right. So, I don't know how to do all that. I don't know how to do all that. All right. What are your thoughts on the 5-1-IO? So 5-1-IO, 5/1-IO. I'm assuming you're talking about a mortgage that is interest only and fixed for 5 years and adjust every year. So it's a 5-1 arm. So a 5-1 arm is you have a 5-1, a 3-1, a 7-1, a 10-1. So the first number represents how long it's fixed. The second number represents how often that it adjusts. And it's typically tied to a particular market. It could be tied to the T-bill. It could be tied to the LIBOR index, if that's still around. I know they were talking about getting rid of it some years ago. But it's tied to something, and that something determines how it's going to adjust. And by adjust, I mean the interest rate. I think mortgages are just tools, and people get in trouble when they use them the wrong way. So if you're doing a 5-1, just know it's going to start adjusting in 5 years. Excuse me. So what's your exit plan? Are you going to increase the value enough in 5 years so that if you have to refinance, you'll still be okay, even before it adjusts? And are the interest rates going to go up when it's time to refinance, or do you think they're going to go down? Well, nobody can predict that in 5 years because interest rates are funny that way. So it's really just planning what you want to do with the property, and you know, it's what do I think of it? I'm indifferent. I would get a 5-year mortgage. So it's a 5-year fixed. It adjusts every year, but it's amortized over 30 years. So there's a 30-year amortization, which means there's a payment schedule over 30 years, and it changes after 5 years, just in case anybody's trying to figure out what that means. I have a property under my LLC. Can I still convert it to corporate? Possibly, if there's no debt on it. Let me read that question again because I fell off at the end. I have a property under my LLC. Can I still convert it to corporate? And I'm guessing, a corporation. I would say talk to a tax professional. The asset class makes a huge difference. My commercial buildings, well, talk to a qualified professional. I've worked with some ownership groups that, that deal in the $1 billion range. As a matter of fact, I was overseeing one project that was about 400 million. They had that in an LLC, and these guys are billionaires. So why they had it in an LLC and where that LLC fit into the legal structure, I didn't know. I wasn't privy to that. But keep in mind, sometimes it's not a either or. Sometimes it's an and. Right? I've seen legal structures where there's a corporation and an LLC tied in there somewhere, but again, I'm not a qualified professional on the tax side, so it is what it is. All right. Okay, what was it? That was question. The eighth question was, what is the BRRRR strategy? How does it work? All right, 9, how do I find and analyze potential investment properties? So there is a way to do that that is relatively easy. And I've been teaching this for years, but people still don't do it. I think maybe if I start charging for the guide, people will take it a little more serious. There's 4 questions you have to ask when determining whether an investment property is in your buy box. What does it cost, or what am I willing to pay? What does it cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? The last 2, I got to check those boxes first. What's it going to be worth when I'm done? If what I have to pay for it is too close to what it's going to be worth when I'm done, I already know that I'm not going to get all of my money back out of the deal because I can't add enough value. So then I have to look at, okay, well, if I have to leave money in that deal, how much money am I going to make month over month and year over year? Then I got to go to data point number 4 and look at how much income that it generates. And then I have to look at the cash that I put into that deal. Does it generate enough income to warrant leaving that cash in there? Am I getting enough of a return? So, you've got to be able to ask those 4 questions. And those 4 questions, it's not always, is it a good deal or is it a bad deal? It just shows you what the deal is, and you can determine whether a good deal is good for you or not good for you. There's some good deals out there that are not good for me. For example, because I like to get all my money back out of the deal and use the same money over and over and over again. Here's a scenario that I came across some time ago that was a good deal, but not for me. It was a house. It was in Jackson, Mississippi. And I use this example all the time. It was in Jackson, Mississippi. The house was $10,000. It needed about $40,000 worth of work. So data point number 1, what does it cost? 10 grand. Data point number 2, what does it cost to fix up? 40 grand. So we know right there, we're going to be all in 50,000. Okay. Data point number 3, what's it going to be worth when I'm done? 25 grand. Well, what does that tell you? Right? Because it's all about interpreting the answers to these questions. And I figured out it was going to be 25 grand by looking at what similar properties were selling for. There wasn't a lot going on in that area. So I would be over improving the property. I would put twice as much as the property is going to be worth to buy it and fix it up. All right. So I'm going to be all in 50,000. It's only going to be worth 25,000. Most investors are going to walk away. All right. But it generated $700 a month. Well, first of all, I'm not going to be able to get financing for it because it's going to be worth less than the money that's required to put into it. So I got to come in all cash. So I got to come in cash, $50,000. It's going to make $700 a month. That's $8,400 a year. But there's no debt on the property after that. So what's 8,400 relative to 50,000? Well, it's 16.8% return. So I have to look at, all right, if I have $50,000 sitting somewhere right now, is it getting 16.8%? Probably not consistently. And that's just the first year because there's no debt on the property. Then it's going to go, my rate of return is going to go up exponentially. So long-term, it may be good for somebody that wants to park some funds there. And now if I'd have known Deion Sanders was coming to Jackson, Mississippi, I'd have bought it. But hindsight is 2020. So the 4 data points tells you what it is, right? What the deal is. Number 10, what are the risks involved in real estate investing and how can I mitigate them? Oh, I can talk 2 hours about the risk. You've just got to understand what you're buying. That's typically it. You got to understand what you're buying. And when you understand what you're buying, then you can make a decision based on all of the details of that purchase. Now, asset classes carry different risks. A single family home, a duplex, triplex, or a fourplex carries different risks than multifamily commercial. Those apartment buildings, there's a separate kind of risk, right? There aren't all the disclosure requirements when you start getting into apartment buildings. So you have to be more advanced and more savvy. That adds risk to new investors. You've got to understand what types of improvement trigger what types of requirements. And this is tough for people to get. I'll give you an example. I had somebody that would, I was charging, I don't do paid consultations anymore. I just don't want to make money that way. So it was $350 for a half hour. And then if it was multifamily commercial, if that was a consultation, it was $750. But I'd make sure that it was resolved. So whatever issue they had, I'd make sure it was resolved. So if we went over a half hour, I wouldn't charge them more. And then for multifamily commercial, because a lot of people wanted me to help them actually underwrite the deal, which takes a lot of time, that was $750. And I was really trying to deter people from doing that, because there were people that they wouldn't want mentorship, but they figured, okay, well, I'll just call them when I need them, and then it'll cost less than me getting mentorship, which is the dumbest thing I ever heard, because our mentorship is lifetime. So I don't know. Anyway, but I said, okay. And so this person would ask, they didn't even know what questions to ask. So, and I'm there to answer all the questions. So what they did was they were going around and they were trying to piece part all the information that you could get. And they did a pretty good job. How to buy an apartment building, right? It was 5 units. It was less than 200,000. So it wasn't a huge purchase. How to buy an apartment building, how to work with vendors, how to get estimates, how to write real estate contracts, all of these things, right? And they bought the property. They were halfway through the rehab. There was one permit that they needed to get signed off, or well, there was more than one, but the next one that they needed to get signed off. The inspector came in, not code enforcement. The building inspector came in to sign off on the permit and saw how much they renovated the house or the building, and said, "You guys triggered the life safety requirement." And a life safety requirement is basically just like it sounds. There's certain requirements that have to do with life and safety. Most people associate that with fire suppression systems, fire rated doors, and all these things that come with that. This person didn't know to ask about that. So based on the information that they had, they got their estimates, they got their financing and all these things. So now they've got to incorporate this fire safety component into their rehab. And that's probably going to cost them another $40,000 to $50,000 to do, because they did it too late and they didn't incorporate it into the initial rehab when they started. So they're going to have to rip off drywall. They're going to have to change plumbing, all of these different things that they didn't take into consideration because they were trying to kind of piece part it together. That's why I tell people, look, if you're going to be a real estate investor, then be a real estate investor. Don't try to, figure it out on your way, because it'll cost you a lot more money. Right? Now, I understand why people do that. I don't think those are bad people. I don't even think those people are naive. I think in a world where everybody is trying to charge you $20,000 and $30,000 for stuff you could Google, that I commended them. Right? So I gave them they told me about it, and I ended up helping them raise the funds outside of the traditional way, and I bailed them out. You think they sent me a check for saving them that $50,000? No, they didn't. I'm just kidding. They're in our real estate family now, and they're listening right now. That's why I said that. All right. So how do I find and analyze potential investments? That was one question. What are the risks involved in real estate investing? I answered that. So the second group of questions, has to do with financing and budgeting. All right. So what financing options are available for investors? Now, there's a bunch of different financing options. There's the creative financing, where you don't use institutional financing. There is asset-based lending, where they don't look at your personal financials, but they qualify you primarily on the equity in the property or the income that it generates, or a combination of both. There's conventional financing, where you go to a traditional bank like Chase or whatever bank does home mortgages, Navy Federal or whatever. But those institutions don't set the rules. They abide by the rules set by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And what happens is they look at your ability to repay, and they look at your credit score, and the documentation requirements are significant. And as a real estate investor, or an entrepreneur, somebody that's self-employed, We try to reduce our taxable income as much as possible, but when we're trying to get conventional financing, it looks like we make less and don't qualify for as much if we qualify at all. So there's a bunch of different types of financing that can be used. Let me see. Let me scan to make sure I don't have any questions. All right. What's up, Jasmine? How you doing? You can come up. All right. All right. How does a conventional loan differ from an FHA loan? Uh, uh, Conventional loan is not insured. So FHA insures loans. FHA, what it says is, hey, Mr. Lender, if this person defaults, we will go ahead and cover it up to a certain percentage. And it is only for owner occupied properties, properties that you are going to live in. Even if you buy a duplex, triplex, fourplex, and you live in one of them, it still counts. You can do an FHA loan. So conventional loans you can do on investment properties and second homes and you know and those things. So they're different. FHA is just insured by a government entity. What is a hard money loan and when should I consider one? Hard money loan is an asset based loan. Asset based is they look at the asset to determine if you qualify or not. There are some personal things that they look at. They look at your experience and credit score. Um, but yeah, it's generally what it is. It's asset based lending. That's what hard money is. How do I calculate cash on cash return? Okay, so you look at how much money your property is going to make at the end of the year, and then you look at how much actual cash you had to put into it, down payment, rehab, all the actual cash you had to put in it, not any financing. And then you divide one from the other. So if your property is going to make, let's say, uh, $30,000 a year, but you had to put in $50,000. You divide the 30,000 by the 50. I hope I didn't. I'm talking fast. I hope I didn't do that backwards. But you just divide one by the other, and that's your cash on cash return. Keep in mind, cash on cash return does not include appreciation. Cash on cash return is just a metric that we use to see how profitable a property is going to be in the first year. Because you're not putting any more money into the property on the second year, we typically only apply it to the first year, but that's it. What is a cap rate and why is it important? A cap rate, and this is something that is specific to the multifamily commercial industry, a cap rate is the relationship between a building's net operating income and the value of the building or what it sold for, assuming that the value is what it sold for. So for example, if a building's net operating income is 30 grand and it's sold for 300,000, you divide the market value, which is the sale price, by the net operating income. So I'm sorry, or vice versa. So you do 30,000 divided by 300,000, you come in with 10%. You come up with 10%. 10% is the cap rate. So that is it. That is the cap rate. And cap rates are used to compare different deals. I don't put too much stock in cap rates. Cap rates can be manipulated because net operating incomes can be manipulated. Also, cap rates don't take into account financing. So if you have two buildings, both at the same exact cap rate, but one was purchased 2 years prior than the other, they've got different financing. So one building could be purchased and the owner has 5% financing. The other one has 7% financing. Well, even though the numbers are the same for the building, the cash flow is going to be different. So I always look at cash flow over cap rates because the cash flow is going to pertain to you specifically. All right. That was good. That's all. That was a good question. That came up a few times. Did you? So it's important. It's not as important as people would make out. We spend 1 week on just cap rates and net operating income and what they tell us. How do I estimate cash flow of a rental property? Oh, well, you estimate what it's going to cost you to own it every month, and you estimate how much income it's going to generate. And then you divide what it costs you to own it from the income that it's going to generate, and there's your cash flow. Gets a little more complicated when you get into multifamily commercial. We have tools that we use to put all the units in there. We have to look at each unit type and see what the market rent is for each unit type. So 1 bedrooms, we have to itemize versus 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms and 4 bedrooms if you find any 4-bedroom apartments. And then we have to do calculations based on each one. And it's a process. You guys getting into multifamily commercial, I have a workshop this weekend. If you guys are interested in that, just text the word workshop to the number above my head, or you guys on any of the other platforms, you can just follow that link and you guys know how to get a hold of me. All right. How do I estimate cash flow? Okay. What are the typical closing costs associated with investment properties? Oh, that could be a laundry list. Well, if you're financing, the cost of the money is typically the upfront cost of the money. Discount points is probably going to be closing costs. Insurance is going to be a part of your closing costs. Notary fees, processing fees, prepaid interest, transfer tax, any of the inspections that you had billed to escrow, right? Billed to escrow means you're going to pay it out of your closing costs. That could be the appraisal is something that could be a part of your closing costs, so you have to pay it up front. Home inspection can be a part of your closing costs, though you have to pay it up front. There's a lot of different things that can be a part of your closing costs, but your lender should be able to give you an estimate on what their fees are, and then the closing company will give you a closing statement estimate on what their fees are, and then you can kind of put it all together. All right. Typical close. Okay. How can I leverage other people's money in real estate deals? Well, that's what real estate investing is using other people's money. You got to have some money though, eventually, right? The opportunity comes up where you can acquire real estate and pay out of your exit strategy. That's very easy to do. Very easy to do. I teach people how to do that all the time. But I always, I warn them, don't try to make a business model out of that. It's you gotta be in more conversations to generate more opportunities. So even though you can buy a house with zero capital or buy an apartment building, I teach people how to do that with zero capital. Then how'd you get in the conversation? Well, you better be putting money into marketing. Well, marketing's not free. So, I manage people's expectations. Yeah, that is one of the tools you have in your tool belt to know how to acquire assets with zero resources up front. Doesn't mean the asset's free. It just means that you're going to pay out of your exit strategy. So other people's money is typically where we focus as real estate investors. We want to get the most for the least. So I teach people how to do that. But there are times where you're going to have some money. All right. So that was the financing and budgeting questions. So now I'll get into the market analysis and property evaluation stuff. How do I assess the potential appreciation of a property? I tell people don't. If it's the potential appreciation of the property over long term, I don't do deals based on that. Now, if I want to park some money somewhere and I know that an area is going to be redeveloped and I don't have anything else going on, then I'll take that into consideration. Back in 2020, Fifth Ward, Houston, I saw the master plan and what they were going to be doing to Fifth Ward, Houston. So I had a house built there, and I've been renting it out ever since. And it's appreciated and all that, but my money is in that house. The money that I put into it is in it. I'm not getting it back out. I got an interest rate that was so good, I'm not going to do any refinancing. So there's kind of an exception for me that I made. But as a real estate investor, I do not bank on future appreciation. The only appreciation or value add that I bank on is the value add that I create through the deal, so I can exit after I've realized that appreciation. So when I'm having a conversation with one of my students, we look at all of those things, right? We just have a conversation about what it is they're trying to do and what this particular subject property that they may be considering is going to yield as far as income. All right, let me see. What tools can I use for market research and property analysis? I use PropStream. You got to be able to pull public records. PropStream is a subscription software. Costs you about $100 a month. If you reach out to me, I'll send you my link. You can get it for a little cheaper. There are 4 things that you're going to have as a new real estate investor. 4. There's no way around it. And these are the minimum. You got to have a way to check public records. I use PropStream. None of them are perfect, but it has the best data set in my opinion, and I've used many. You got to be able to check rental incomes and get rental analysis. Even if you're a landlord, if you're going to be doing renewals for your tenants, it helps to have a subscription software where you can check rents. Okay, so I use rentometer.com. Some people call it Rentometer. We can have that fight later. So PropStream, Rentometer. You got to have a way to communicate with people. Documentation. If you're going to put an offer on a property and you're not a real estate agent, where are you going to get the documentation from? So eForms or Rocket Lawyer gives you all your basic documents. All right. And you got to have a way to market yourself, at least a landing page, because in order to find these deals, you may have to communicate with people unless you're just utilizing wholesalers. But keep in mind, they have a fee, they're middlemen, right? So a landing page just to let people know that you're a real person on the internet. All right. So those are the 4 things that you typically need to have. And that question was, what tools can I use for market research and property analysis? Now, for those that are just tuning in on the different platforms, these are all the questions that I've accumulated over time that I'm just going over. I'll probably rock out for another 20, 25 minutes. But these are questions that everybody has asked. I took all the questions that everybody's asked and I narrowed them down to these things for real estate investing. Now we are on, and you know, we had questions that were for people. I grouped them into categories: getting started, financing and budgeting, market analysis and property evaluation, legal and management considerations, and then some other ones. I think I have a total of about 40, and we're more than halfway through. All right. Okay. What tools can I use for market research? I was 22. We just did that. How do I identify emerging markets or neighborhoods? You don't. Why do you care? All right. So that's a valid question. So if I'm buying a multifamily commercial building, I need to make sure that the neighborhood can support the rental rates that I'm going to be providing or not providing or charging. I also have to make sure that the job industry can create enough demand where people need housing, right? So I got to make sure that the job industry can support it. So the more doors that I have to fill, Jay, I will buy mobile homes, typically not individually. I'll buy a mobile home park. I haven't recently. I've partnered with some folks that did it years ago, but I'm always open to that. Now, I look at what's going on with the property itself. So most investors, especially the well-capitalized institutional investors, they look for submarkets. They dive into submarket data because they've got more units to fill. If you've got to fill 200 and 300 units, you better be able to assess that market. I go all the way down to the actual property itself, and I'm not competing with those guys either. I'm not doing over 100 units. I probably won't even, 50 is kind of the sweet spot for me. So what I do is look at, and it's typically a lot less than that. So I run the 4 data points on one particular address. Sean Gavin, I'm gonna get to your question in 1 second. On a particular address, and I ask those 4 questions: what does this cost, or what am I willing to pay? What does it cost to fix up? What's it gonna be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? The reason why I focus on the building and not the market is because the market can change block to block, especially if you live in some place like Baltimore or Philadelphia or some of these places that the environment can change block to block. So I look at the property itself, and then I'll look at the market. Okay, 4 data points is going to save you a lot of time. You can have an outstanding market with crap investments in there if you pick the wrong one, or you can have a horrible market with good opportunities. So it's my job to teach people how to find those and make the distinction between the two. Sean Gavin says, what are your thoughts about creative financing such as subject to and seller financing? They're just tools. And I teach both of those, and I teach people when to use them. And I go into detail about each one, things you have to look for, how you can get yourself in trouble. I focus on risk first and how to mitigate it. So, those tools used the wrong way could put you on the road to bankruptcy, depending on the deal. But they're, again, just like anything else, just like all the different mortgages and all the different investment strategies, knowing to use which one and which ones to stay away from at a particular time and place is what's going to determine whether you're successful or not. So, both of those can serve their purpose. Subject to financing is taught wrong a lot. It's taught wrong a lot. And the way that it's taught, especially in a lot of these different platforms, there's way too much risk. And 99% of the people that I see teaching subject to, I'm about to piss somebody off. 99% of the people I see teaching it aren't seasoned real estate investors. They're not millionaires. Maybe 1% are, right? But they're not millionaires, I guarantee you. But I do know a couple of people that teach it well. So it's, this is no shade to anybody. All right. Good question, Sean. How do I identify emerging markets and neighborhood? I just answered that. What factors should I consider when evaluating a property's location? Again, that goes to running the 4 data points, asking those 4 questions, and understanding your environment. For example, there's certain place that I will not invest in, because if I have to go service the property myself, I don't want to have to be armed doing it. Okay. Now, I have no problem being armed, but I'm not going to push the envelope by investing in war zones in some other places, right? So, but some people come from that environment. And when they come from that environment, their comfort level, they know how to move a little different. I don't have the temperament for that. So that's one of the factors that I consider. But it's typically how much income can it generate, right? If you run these 4 data points, it will show you, if you address each question, it'll show you whether a property is going to be a good deal or a bad deal. And it takes a lot of this into consideration. If it's a bad area, well, where's that going to be reflected? In the income the property could generate, right? Is it a good economy in this particular area? Well, where's that going to be reflected? In the income that the property can generate. If I got a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot single family home in one market, and I make $2,000 a month, and that same home in another market, it only brings in $900 a month. That tells me everything I need to know about the 2 economies. Now I just have to look at what is the purchase price relative to the income to see which one is a better deal. It's not always the one that brings in more money, because it may cost so much more. So that was actually a really good question. How do I conduct a comparative market analysis, a CMA? It's 4 data points. You can go in PropStream and see what some of the properties are selling for in your market. You just got to know how to organize the data and make sure, because this is a major mistake that people make sure that you are not just choosing comps to support your argument. And if there aren't enough comps to make a decision, your risks just increase substantially. What is the importance of vacancy rates in a given area? Well, if it's vacant, it's not generating any income, and you've still got expenses. So that's the importance of vacancy rates in a particular area. Typically, when you're dealing with vacancy, and what I teach my students is, if you're dealing with vacancy, if you already own the asset, right? Let's say you didn't do all the due diligence that you needed to do, and you bought this asset, you thought it was a good deal, and you're trying to rent it out, and you're not getting any bites. There's a process called the 4 Ps in the multifamily commercial industry. Any of you that were in that industry have had to learn this on the leasing side. The 4 Ps are this. There are 4 things you have to address when you have a vacancy issue. The first one is the person responsible. Is the person following up with people? Are they posting the listing where it needs to be posted? Are they setting appointments? All of those things. So it goes person, price, promotion. Person, product, promotion, price. Person, product, promotion, price. It could go product, promotion, person, price. It could go promotion, person, product, price. Why do I keep repeating it? Because the only thing that's important is that the prices last. Okay. Is the product show ready? Don't show the product until it's ready to be shown. Even if somebody comes in and says, oh, I'm only going to be in town, for 3 minutes, and I can see past all the work that you're doing. Okay. Make sure it's show ready. Promotion, make sure you're promoting it to the right places. Put it on Craigslist, folks. Craigslist is free, right? It's a #1 lead source for the West Coast. And anytime one of my property managers on the East Coast or the Midwest was having issues, I created a listing on Craigslist. We had the property leased within 2 weeks. All right. So promotion, make sure it's being promoted to the different platforms. And then price. If you do all that, 9 times out of 10, you don't have to adjust the price. You guys are in a real estate family. That guide, Landlord Launchpad, will tell you everything you need to know about being a landlord. Everything you need to know about being a landlord. And it takes that into consideration also. All right. How do local economic indicators affect real estate investments? Well, it's reflected in the price that you can get for the property, period. If there's high demand, you can get more rent. If there's low demand, you got to charge lower rent. You charge lower rent. Keep in mind, you still have an obligation to pay for that asset. The mortgage isn't getting any lower. The expenses aren't getting any lower. Property taxes typically aren't getting any lower. So, that's a very, very quick conversation. What role do school districts play in property value? An extremely big role. extremely big role in, if you're talking about a single family home, you know, Cupertino is one of the cities here in the Bay Area, one of the smaller cities in the Bay Area. It's not the most expensive city, but it's known for having really, really good schools. A 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom, 2,000 square foot house that's 80 years old is going for $2.5 million, right? Because of the schools. So schools are a major, major, major driving force. Now, I'm not talking about schools to where you can do student housing. Okay. I'm not talking about you want to buy an apartment building because it's near a school. If you don't know how to manage student housing, you're going to go broke really, really fast. It's not what you think. There are things that have to be taken into consideration for that. Right? I've had to manage some student housing before. Trust me, it's not what you think. Okay. How do I assess the condition and potential repair costs of a property? This is a good one, and I don't advise you getting into this without mentorship. But if I had to break it down and simplify it as much as possible, I would put it in 3 phases. The first phase is make as many observations as you can. Go room to room and say, hold on 1 second here. All right. Oh, there's James. What's up, James? All right. Go room to room and make as many observations as you can. Just write it down, right? Write down all these things. I'll give you an example. One of those, I'll take, if I'm turning a unit and I'm going to, I'm just going room to room with my iPad and I'm writing it down. Let's say a tenant just moved out. I'm getting ready to turn it for the next tenant. Look, light switches need to be updated, interior paint, flooring. Okay, let me go in the bathroom. Okay, I need a new shower enclosure. All right, mirror needs to be redone. I need new fixtures in here throughout. Okay, doors, hardware on doors, cabinet. I just go all the way through. That's the first phase. The second phase is I got to organize the information so I can hand it to somebody. So I have a spreadsheet, and for my students, I have a template for you guys. If you need it, most of you guys already have it. There's a million templates out there. And we itemize everything that needs to be done. Okay. That's the second phase. We put it in a format we can hand to somebody. And then we get a bid based on what is now our scope of work and not just having somebody come to the property and giving us an estimate on what it costs to fix it. Okay. We send them that spreadsheet and say, hey, can you give me pricing on all of these things? That way, if you have to pivot during the project, you know how that pivot is going to affect your price. Okay. That's very, 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 very important. All right. Now, the more you do, the more projects you do, the better you get at kind of estimating the price. All right. And, but again, I invest all over the country. If I go to Mississippi, I can pay somebody $13 an hour to swing a hammer. I come back to the Bay Area, I got to pay that person $30 an hour to swing a hammer. So all of those things are taken into consideration. But you do know what the big 5 are. The big 5 are roof, foundation, plumbing, electrical, HVAC. Let's call it heating and air. Okay. Those are the big 5 that people gravitate towards. I already know no matter where I go in the country, if I've got to address all 5, I'm in $70,000 at least, period. Right. So, and then I can go ahead. That's enough to let me know whether I need to walk away from the property and not even do the due diligence. Right. So the better you get at it, the more you do, the better you get at it. But just make sure that you're getting the proper people involved and you are giving them enough information to give you a good estimate, and take it seriously too. Like, don't skimp, right? Landscape. Are you doing anything with landscape? Are there any trees growing in the front yard? Do those trees have roots? Well, if it's on the city system, there's a sewer lateral that goes from the house to the street. Are those roots wrapped around that? If I see a tree, that's one of the things I am going to inspect. If you're new, I would always recommend getting a property inspection. Why? Because a property inspection tells you everything. You can have a house built, you could have a house that was built yesterday. Stuff is still going to come up on the property inspection, and they're unbiased and you know exactly what you're getting. All right. So Sean says, so I reside in Sacramento, California. Would it be wise for me to wholesale invest in my city or go remote? It depends on how much knowledge you have. There are opportunities in Sacramento. But if you're wholesaling in Sacramento, I would say, so this is what I tell people. People go into wholesaling because there's a low cost barrier to entry to get into it, but they're not investors. Because if they were investors, and just like some of my students came in as wholesalers and now they're investors, including the person that wrote the wholesaling book for my students is now an investor because you did the hardest part. You got the property under contract. Your issue is if you don't have the capital to take it down, you don't know how to get it by non-traditional means. So if you're going to be a wholesaler, great, but just be an investor, right? Just be an investor. Remote, you can do remote also, but again, if you're not an investor locally, you're not going to be very effective doing it remotely, and you can develop a reputation for sending trash deals. There are some wholesalers that they don't even go into my inbox. I just have them automatically routed into my junk mail because they send me so much trash because they don't know how to properly assess a deal. I've even sent some the guide on how to assess a deal. They still don't know how to do it. So, hopefully I answered your question. You can do it local or remotely, but if you can't spot an investment opportunity through the lenses of an investor, it's going to be more challenging as a wholesaler for you, as a good wholesaler. Also know who you're competing with as a wholesaler because there are wholesalers that I work with, really good outfits. Some outfits are pretty large, and they're putting $30,000 to $40,000 a month into marketing, and they're making 10,000 calls a day. So you trying to be a wholesaler, if you're trying to be a wholesaler and, make as many calls as you can on your lunch break, it's just too hard to compete. All right. What is the importance of it? Okay. What role do school districts play? Same as schools. If it's a good school district, the question is, what role do school districts play in property value? The better the schools, the more expensive the property in that schools. Right? How can I assess the condition of potential repair costs of a property? Okay, we just talked about that one. What is due diligence and what does it entail? It's just research on what you're buying. Okay. If you're doing a multifamily commercial, there's going to be a lot more research. Okay. We spend a week just on due diligence for those folks that are getting into apartment buildings. All right. Sometimes I have to go in and I have to play a big role in that transaction because my policy is I'm not going to put somebody out there that is not 100% confident in their ability to be out there by themselves. So there's times where I'll do the due diligence with them. There's even times for my students, I'll have the conversation with the seller and just position myself as their partner for sake of the conversation, but I won't take any money from the deal. So, all right. Now, let me see if there's any questions. I think we're good to go on questions. So the next section of questions that I've received has to do with the legal and management considerations. And the legal and management considerations have to do with like legal structure and all these other things. So first question, the most common, do I need to form an LLC for my real estate investments? I say you need to form some entity. Depending on what you're doing, some entities are going to work better than others. So I would say talk to a qualified professional. It's not just having an LLC, it's how you use it. How many do you need to have? Do you need to partner that LLC with a C Corp? Do you need to partner that LLC with a land trust? So it depends on what you're doing. Talk to a qualified professional. I am not one of them. I know how I do things, but I have advisors and all that other stuff. What insurance policies are necessary for investment properties? That's a really good question, and one that people rarely ask. So if you're rehabbing a property, get a builder's risk policy. If you have contractors working on that property, make sure that contractor has general liability and workman's comp. If you are going to put a tenant in that property, make sure you have a landlord policy. Talk to your insurance company and tell them exactly what you're going to do and let them guide you. And when I get their wisdom, I'll go ahead and send them an email saying, hey, per our conversation, you recommended X, Y, and Z. So if there's an issue where I'm underinsured, I'm going to save that email and say, hey, you guys recommended this based on what I told you I was doing. All right. How do I handle tenant screening and lease agreements? Everybody blows this one. So I'll say this. When you're screening tenants, take applications in the order that they were received. Have the same guidelines for everybody, same requirements across the board. I see people mess this up all the time. If you get hit with a fair housing violation, let's say you get hit 3 times in 7 years, it's a 6-figure fine. 6 figures, right? So you want to do things, you want to stay in compliance. Screening people is important. Sometimes landlords will be inclined to because they just want the money, right? They need the rental income, especially when that mortgage is eating them up, and they'll relax some of the screening requirements to get somebody in there and start making that money. Where it hits them is the deposit accounting, right? If you relax credit requirements and all these other things, and people don't care about their credit, if they tear up your unit, there's no recourse, right? You can take their deposit, but more often than not, the deposit isn't enough to cover it. All right. Go ahead, Karen. Feel free to come up here on Clubhouse. All right. Lease agreements. Go to eForms or Rocket Lawyer. Their lease agreements are state specific. They ask you what state that they're in, and they will give you recommendations through the entire process. I know what to look for because I was overseeing $650 million in multifamily commercial assets, so that stuff is embedded into my psyche already. But just make sure you're getting a state specific lease agreement. And I mentioned earlier, you should have eForms or Rocket Lawyer or whatever one you choose for all of this paperwork anyway, because once you get the property leased and your lease agreement is already concrete, well, you're going to have to, if they don't pay, you got to have the notices and stuff to serve them. In some states, it's a 3-day notice. Some states, it's a 5-day notice. So you're going to have to know all that. And if you don't, these platforms will make a recommendation for you. Jay says, what states do you recommend for a beginner with small capital for Burr? Guys, I'm always going to say, get your real estate education first. Get your investing education first. Because none of these recommendations mean anything if you can't look at the world through the lenses of a real estate investor, because there's so many things to consider. There's not always just one answer to a question, right? There's things that, offset. For example, here's one. Here's a common one. You're buying a property. There's 2 properties you're considering. One is master metered, meaning utilities come to the building and not to the individual residents, and you can bill them back for those utilities, right? And one is sub-metered, which means the residents pay their own pay their own utilities, right? They all get their own bill. Now, yes, you can bill back for utilities for the master metered, and let's assume the master meter building is a little less expensive, so it's more attractive. But if you don't understand something as simple as how to structure your lease, it's going to hit you on your financials, because even though you're billing them back for utilities, you have to have occupancy standards written in your lease, because your projections are going to be off, because that 1 bedroom that you bill back $50 a month for water, if they got 5 people living in there and taking 5 showers a day, well, guess what? Guess who's going to make up the difference? You as the landlord. So, to the question, where was that question? I forgot where. Oh, what states do I recommend for a beginner with small capital for Burr? I would say if you have money, get mentorship. It didn't have to be me, but get some actual mentorship and know which questions to ask them before you pay them to mentor you. How much support are you getting? Right? How much support? When I need something, how can I call somebody? And for how long? Those are very important questions. A lot of things that these programs teach, you can Google on the internet. Now, you don't have the experience to maybe implement it, but it's not worth, they're selling you information. I've been giving information away for free for 4 years. Why are people still signing up for my mentorship? Because even with the information, when they go try to execute, they find out what it really is. So when they call me, the conversation's a bit different. Ola, there's a number above my head. You should be able to see it. Just text 4DPA to that number. That number is 702-710-8030. We only take so many people at a time. I personally mentor about 350 people. A lot of them are, advanced and they need less help over time. They just come back in when they need something. But go ahead and text that number, and I'll go ahead and have a conversation with you, myself or one of the people in our organization. There's only about 5 of us, so. But it'll probably be me because I'm the one on here right now. All right. What's the next question? How do I handle tenant screening and lease agreements? We did that one. What are the landlord-tenant laws I should be aware of? Oh, my goodness. I'm not even going to answer that question. It depends on where you're at. It depends on if you're in a blue state or a red state. It's tough being a landlord in a blue state. It's a little easier in a red state. I have a guide called Landlord Launchpad. If you guys are landlords, I'll just give it to you. Just text me. I'll just give it to you. That's going to be my free gift to you guys today. All right. So Landlord Launchpad, I'll get that out to you guys either today or tomorrow. So just text that number, text 702-710-8030, and then I'll get it to you. That is not something you want to play around with. Landlord and tenant law. Boy, okay. All right. Can you send your Instagram information? So you can find me on Instagram at OtisJames1. So ODISJAMES and the number 1. And you can find me on TikTok at 4 data points at 4, the number 4, DATAPOINTS. Right? You guys starting to get the 4 data points thing now because it's so important. We're 4 data points academy. No, that wasn't clever. Okay, I thought that was clever. It's fine. You guys are probably applauding right now. I just can't hear it. All right. Let me see. What are the landlord tenant laws I should be aware of? Okay, question 35. I got 40 questions. We're on 35. How do I manage properties remotely? Well, what's going on, Karen? I'm gonna put you on mute just for 1 second. And I don't know how. Okay, Karen, go ahead and mute. Oh, there you go. I got you. All right. If you got a question, Karen, feel free. Just come off mute. All right.
No, I don't have a question.
What's up, Karen?
I don't have a question.
Oh, okay. No worries. I'm getting some background. Oh, there you go. All right. So, okay. How do I manage properties remotely? Okay. You better be a good landlord, because even if you have a property manager, you got to make sure that the property manager is doing what they need to be doing. So again, Landlord Launchpad, you guys reach out to me. I'll get it to you. Took me hours to put that together. So I don't know. I may give it to you. If you say please, I'll give it to you. All right. What are the best practices for property maintenance and management? Best practices. There's a lot of them. I can spend 2 hours just going on over that. Again, if you guys, if that's a question you guys have, Landlord Launchpad, it's a guide that I have. I'll give it to you. 37, how do I handle evictions legally and ethically? So hire an eviction attorney, and they have services. It's not as expensive as you think. I had to do an eviction in South Carolina. They wanted $300. I was like, seriously? Okay, shoot. $300. I'm gonna be evicting people that aren't even my tenants. Okay. All right. And then in Missouri, it was like $500. Here in the Bay Area, it's about $1,200. That's assuming they don't go to trial. That's to get through the eviction process. I've been to court probably 37 times. Never lost. I gave in one time though, because the people were trying to get over, and it was just a man trying to survive and keep his family from being on the street. So I lost. I wouldn't say I lost. I helped him out. All right. So yeah, how do I handle evictions legally and ethically? Just hire the experts, right? Just there's an eviction attorney there. It's not as expensive as you think. What are the implications of rent control laws? Oh, yes. So I managed 2,000 rent control units. Be very, very careful in buying in a rent controlled environment, because multifamily commercial assets are valued based on the income that they generate. Well, if the income that they generate is limited by rent control, you are in trouble. But it's not just the limitation on the rent you can charge. Some of them are just cause eviction, which means it's really hard to evict even outside of non-payment of rent, right? Trust me. Oops. A lot of these companies or cities or municipalities, companies have rent boards that you can get petitioned. So if you're going into a rent controlled environment, it is very, very nuanced. You have to know what you're doing, or you will get slaughtered. All right. How do I keep accurate financial records for my investments? Hire a bookkeeper. If you don't have a bookkeeper, there's a company called Stessa, Stessa. I have no affiliation. I just use them. It's property management software. You can manage all your income and expenses for each property through there. You can screen people through there. It does everything. Once you get into over 50 doors, I would suggest a company called Buildium. Buildium is a little more advanced. That's property management software that actually allows you to manage other people's properties too. So All right. What time is it? 10:05. All right, we cooking. Again, my name is Otis James. I'm a full-time real estate investor out of the San Francisco Bay Area. I am a real estate broker in California and Georgia. No, I do not represent buyers and sellers. I only represent myself. I am licensed in insurance because I use it in real estate. I leverage it for real estate, and so I can have those conversations. I got licensed. I'm a long-term hold investor. I've consulted on development projects, domestic and abroad. I have multiple projects I'm working on right now. I have 2 in Texas, 1 in Georgia. And that's probably, we're looking for 2 more right now. I've been in real estate in some way, shape, or form pretty much my entire life. I was 3 years old going to real estate meetings with my dad. I'm 49 now. I spent the better part of 20 years in the multifamily commercial industry. I left at the corporate level, overseeing $650 million in multifamily commercial assets. I ran a mortgage brokerage for 13 years with my father. Some time ago, I ran a real estate brokerage. I was a notary, and then I turned that into a national notary signing agency. I've done things outside of real estate. I took $585 and created a company that went on to generate 7 figures in the short time that I had it. So if there's anyone qualified to teach, somebody want to take a guess who is? No one wants to guess. Okay, it's me. All right. Now I want to shift into common concerns. Mike. Okay, so Venture U. Okay, so the 4 Data Points Academy specialize in real estate investing education. We branched off into entrepreneurship because a lot of our students are also entrepreneurs outside of real estate. So Venture U is an entrepreneurship curriculum. I'm not the only one involved. There's other subject matter experts that are involved in that curriculum. We have a workshop in Medellin, Colombia in Q4 of this year. There's only 16 spots. So for somebody looking to start a business or scale up an existing business, then be there, because all the subject matter experts and every consultation you would need to get you up and running will be in the house. And you guys already know how I get down. So it is going to be a luxury villa. I have a chef coming in, so I'm taking care of all the meals. Your room and board is included. And we are going to give you the blueprint, so when you leave, you know exactly what to do. Okay. Go ahead and ask about a REIT. What do you want to ask about a REIT on TikTok? Feel free to do that, or come on up and I will answer your questions. Let me see. All right. So that's what Venture U is. And if you guys are interested in that, reach out to me. I will get you the brochure. I say read the brochure first so you can appreciate the value of what you're getting. And again, you can just text me about that. That's Venture U. Ascend U has to do with the mindset. This is going to be led by a gentleman by the name of Dr. Alfred Smith. Now, I built this program around him. That's how impressed I am with him. So with his expertise, we built this program, and it's 3 sections: personal development, leadership training, and the science of sales, right? The psychology behind sales. That is Ascend U. We haven't rolled that out yet. We're only taking 10 people at a time. So if you want more information about any of those, reach out to me. And again, I can make you rich in real estate, right? I can make you a millionaire in real estate. But what are you going to do when you get there, right? A lot of people use real estate to fund other dreams, which is why I'm very passionate about the entrepreneurial side of all this stuff. And anything that I feel like I'm not an expert at, I bring in an expert. All right. Let me see. So a REIT is really a passive investment strategy. It stands for Real Estate Investment Trust. One of the rules about investing in a REIT, you're pretty much a shareholder, and they're required to give 90% of their profits back to shareholders. So, I don't mess with REITs. I've worked for one before, but I don't mess with REITs because I need more money than those things pay out. If you want to be a passive investor, then great. I tell people, that's fine. I just need more money. It just doesn't yield enough for me. All right. Sharon says, I need advice about an old landmark building in Memphis, Tennessee, and a thrift store. How can I get a spot to Columbia? You can go to ventureu.live. Let me go ahead and post that. Venture, the letter U.live. And you can get squared away right there. Now, it's not free, folks. It's $5,000 if you want your own suite in the villa. You can do a shared room It's $3,800 for a shared room. And then if you're just going to Columbia, you want to do your own accommodations and all that, then you can still come to the event. It's $2,800, and we'll still cover all your food even if you don't stay with us. So, amen, amen. All right, let's get to it. What are some common concerns about real estate mentoring programs? So, I looked at companies that would consider themselves my competitors. We don't have any competitors because all of them have an end date. And in order for you to stay on with them, they'll charge $25,000, $35,000 annually. That's not why I got into this. I'm a real estate investor first. I use my real estate investing to support our programs. Ours starts at $6,000, and that's for life. So that's pretty much next to nothing, right? So I better be able to train you sooner rather than later. But I always create a space for people to come back and get training, or if they have a question or they're going through something. Those folks that have one-on-ones with me, I tell you, look, if it's an emergency, if it's time sensitive or it's going to cost you money, you call me on my cell phone. If I don't pick up, you send a text message. Just understand, I'm walking out of wherever I am to take that phone call, period. Okay? Just understand that. The only time I can't be reached is when I'm on a plane. And, but I can still check email and do text messages and stuff like that. All right. So there you go. The number one complaint about mentorship programs, and I agree with this 100%. I've been trying to tell people this. Many people have reported paying substantial fees, usually over 10 grand, for mentorship programs that provided information readily available through free or low cost resources. If you wanted to take a real estate investing course and you wanted to learn how to assess a deal, a legitimate one will probably cost you between $500 and $700, right? Everything that course teaches you, I give away in a free guide. People just don't believe it, and they don't appreciate the guide. I've had people take those courses, and then come back. I say, hey, and they always have questions, because courses and information is not enough to turn you into a real estate investor. I've been screaming that from the mountaintop. It's the support and the practical application of that information, which is an entirely different world. Number two, aggressive upselling tactics. Well, we don't do this, so I don't really, some programs enjoy or employ high pressure sales tactics, encouraging participants to purchase additional courses and services, leading to unexpected expense. I just think that's wrong. That's almost criminal. That's some used car salesman type stuff. All right, but it is what it is. Lack of personalized support. This was number three. This is actually tied for number two, but this is number three. Participants often find that promised one-on-one mentorship is minimal or non-existent, with generic advice replacing tailored guidance. Now, I'm gonna tell you. Let me look in Clubhouse because I can see all you guys' faces. I'm sure that there's somebody in this Clubhouse room right now that has reached out to me, and they know that I call them back. Put a 1 in the chat if you're in our real estate family, and when you needed some help, you were able to reach me and got real help, not some cookie cutter BS. Just put a 1 in the chat. If Lydia, Otis is spelled with a D. ODISJAMES 1. Okay. All right. Oh, Angel. Oh, what's up, Angel? You got a new picture, huh, Angel? I didn't even recognize you. Dahlia. Okay. All right, Dahlia. All right. So basically, everybody that needs to get a hold of me, when they have those one-on-ones, they get a hold of me. And what is the Clubhouse handle? I'm not really on Clubhouse anymore, but I mean, I'll put it up if if I'm doing the live stream with everyone else. Clubhouse. I forgot my Clubhouse handle. What is it? It's at Otis James. So at ODISJAMES. All right. I got to wrap up in about 15 minutes. So lack of personalized support was a big one. Questionable refund practices. There are instances where programs have not honored their refund policies, leaving dissatisfied customers without recourse. I don't think I've ever had a dissatisfied customer. I did have one person that wanted to get a refund after 2 years. They were like, "Oh, I ended up not doing anything with it." I was like, "Yeah, no, we're not doing that." The only other legitimate person that wanted a refund, I think they came in when it was $5,000, and she signed up on a Friday. And typically, what happens is when somebody signs up, I pay the support people, and I just put money back into the program to improve the end user experience, right? So I don't have to keep raising prices and pass it on to everybody else. I don't really make that much um, up front. All right. Now, when a bunch of people sign up at one time, we make a little more, but the goal is to make the program perfect, and I'm obsessed about that. And because I use real estate, oops, sorry, and because I use real estate to supplement our program, um, I don't have to keep raising prices. I want everybody to be able to participate. And if you don't have $6,000, you shouldn't be trying to invest in real estate anyway. Your personal situation, I would focus my energy on that. And I'm not saying that to be, and it's true. I'm just being honest. So this woman, it was five. She signed up on Friday, and then she sent me a message. I think it was like Sunday night, saying, "Hey, we had something else came up, and I hadn't distributed the funds to, um, like I normally would. It was just still sitting there. Matter of fact, it may not have even hit the bank yet. But on the platform, I just gave her a refund. We didn't have to have a conversation about it because she was in the right and she hadn't experienced our services yet. So it was no reflection of us or anything that we were doing. Something just came up. And I don't want that person to be a part of our real estate family if they're unhappy, because we give so much support that I got to look at you every single week. So I'm not going to have you in there if you don't want to be there. Right. So it didn't cost me anything to do that. So I went ahead and just gave her money back. So we operate in full transparency. There's no, all money ain't good money. And I don't want somebody's money that doesn't see the value. Right. I've turned people away that wanted to give me money, but didn't see the value because I just didn't want to work with them. Now this is not during the course of our normal business. This is some other stuff. But yeah, I'm not really attached to money like that. Okay, questionable refund. Okay, so let me see, is this the last one? Okay, misleading marketing claims. Some programs have been accused of making exaggerated claims about potential earnings, leading to unrealistic expectations. Oh, I see that all the time. A very famous person said, "Your first deal should be no less than $1 million." Okay, I'm like, look, if people honestly believe that, then how come your first deal wasn't $1 million, sir? Oh, because you didn't have the knowledge back then. Okay, well, they don't have the knowledge either. So first of all, I have to teach people what $1 million deal looks like, so that they can see how reasonable it is for themselves. All right. Your first deal, yeah, look, I have students, they made no money on their first deal. They broke even. I had students that make $80,000 on their first deal. I've had students that lost money, $3,000 or $4,000 on their first deal. You, it, it's real estate investing is not foolproof. Okay. There's a lot of different variables you have to take into consideration. Now, 90% of the people in our real estate family, it end up doing okay, right? They break even on the first deal and they make it up on the second deal, right? But even I have investments that I've lost money on, right? I'm losing money on an investment right now, only because there's other people invested with me, and I'm just losing money so they don't have to. And and it's a significant amount too. So I don't really, I just be transparent with people. It helps you sleep at night. Just do good business. We don't do a lot of marketing. The only marketing we do is people talking good about us behind our back. So, so in general, like, folks, just do good business. Just try to be good people. Where are all the good people at? Remember, it was just a lot more good people walking around. Where'd they all go? All right. So this is what we do to kind of combat all of that nonsense. This is partly why I don't even like to be in conversations with these other groups. Transparent. Everything is transparent. When you go to a lot of these, the bigger programs that are significant in cost, they don't have their pricing on their website. I got the pricing in the brochure on the website. It shows you exactly what you get. Now, do we over deliver? Absolutely. Because we call it a real estate family because we go so far above and beyond just teaching you how to invest in real estate. There's a lot of things that I do for people that are completely way out of, let's just say we under promise and over deliver. But one guarantee that we make is a guarantee, and I'll put this in writing. We will turn you into a real estate investor. We will. You will know how to invest in real estate. Now, if you decide you don't want to, that's on you. But that is a guarantee that we put in writing. And that's evidence by our willingness to stay in the fight with you for as long as it takes without asking you for any more money. I don't care if it takes a year. I don't care if it takes 5 years. As long as we exist and you're a part of our real estate family, we're going to do what it takes to get you to where you need to go. Let me see, like every other business's experience, experience is what matters. Absolutely. All right. Personalized mentorship, ensure that students receive individualized support tailored to their specific goals and challenges. This is where a lot of programs go wrong. And I think it's intentional because it costs them a lot more to give tailored support. It's my job to make sure that a person is successful. There is no cookie cutter solution to that. So after I teach people the fundamentals, I have to tailor something for them. There may be two different people. One has great credit, one has poor credit. One has capital, one doesn't. One has poor credit, no capital, but they have the relationships. I have to put myself in everybody's situation and tailor something for them in their current situation. All right. That costs a lot to do, costs a lot in time, resources. And, you guys are starting to realize how low of an amount $6,000 is, right? I'm describing it. All right. Comprehensive curriculum. We provide in-depth, actionable content that goes beyond basic information available online. So just like I'm talking to you right now and you guys are on the live stream, I'm teaching just like this, and I teach 90% of our classes. Now, I won't be teaching some of the other, like all the Venture U stuff and the Ascend U stuff, but this is, because I'm very protective of the people that trust me to get them to the promised land. And I'm not going to hand that off to somebody else. So we teach these classes all live. I have a course we're building out. I'm not charging for the course. This is not a course that I'm charging for. This is a course only used as a student, as a tool for our students. So when you come into the portal pretty soon over the next couple of weeks, they'll be able to take the course. Now they still have all the live classes they want to come to, but you may be up at 2 a.m. and want to remember what I said about seller financing. Well, you can log into the portal, watch the video, look at the seller financing lesson. Maybe I'll have some quizzes in there. All right. So this is not a course that I charge people for. It's just going to be a part of our program. Let me see. Ethical marketing. So we set realistic expectations about potential outcomes, avoiding exaggerated claims. This is why we can't do exaggerated claims outside of we're just trying to be good people. When you do an exaggerated claim and the student doesn't realize that, if they've already gone through the program, what are they going to do? Come back to you and say, hey, you said I'd be making $1 million and I'm not. I can always find a reason why you're not making $1 million. I could say, oh, well, I told you you should be reaching out to people every day. Well, I have. I reached out to, 20 people every day. Yeah, but you could have reached out to 30. Like there's always a reason you can do that and lean back on your legalities and, all your documentation and disclaimers and all that stuff. We don't do that. The world is hard enough. Just give people realistic expectations. All right. Your first deal is not going to be $1 million. You're not going to be a millionaire in your first year. You may in 3 years. One of my students started off with 2 properties and now they're at 30 doors. And on top of that, they've got vertically integrated businesses that are generating more income that all derive from their real estate investing. I have some students that have been with me for 2 years that haven't got their first deal yet because they've got other priorities in life, right? So I'm creating a space for them to always come back. Let me see. Student testimonials. So we do share some success stories. If you go on our website now, I think we have like 7 or 8 success stories. I get weird about that because I don't want to exploit somebody else's success for my personal gain. So our web designer asked me if, I wanted to, he says like, you got to put these up. And I was like, all right, so I'll send a note out. If somebody feels compelled, then I'll go ahead and do it. He's like, yeah, people need to see, the proof of it. He was so excited. And I was like, okay. But there's certain things that I just don't like to do that help me sleep better at night. And so I'm really weird about putting other people's business out there. But in any platform that I'm on, there's typically people on that platform also that are in our real estate program, our real estate family. And you can just ask them. And I give them all permission to tell the truth. If I messed up somewhere, please you have my permission to drag me through the mud as much as you want to. But yeah, so you guys know how it is. Y'all know how old this is. All right. Yeah, we do. He makes himself laugh. All right. Now, that being said, we're going to wrap it up. I feel like in just a minute. But look, if you guys are seriously you want to be a real estate investor, I'll turn you into one. And if I don't turn you into one, I got to look at you every day for as long as we exist in shame. Right. But, we developed the 4 Data Points Academy so we can bring real estate investing to the average person. All right. And not just, leave it for the elite. We also priced it at a point where, the average person, it's attainable. right? We have 3 different pricing options. All of that stuff is on our website. Our brochure is on our website. Anybody that I promised some of the documentation, you can text me at 702-710-8030, and I will send you whatever I promised you. Just remind me what it is. Those that want to come to our business intelligence retreat in Medellin, Colombia, October 1st through October 6th, you can text me. I can send you a brochure, or you can go to Venture U Live, VENTURE, the letter U dot live. You ever get nervous when you spell in public real fast? Because I still need 6 credits to graduate junior college, y'all. So bear with me. I get a little nervous. Other than that, anything that has to do with real estate, anything, even the peripheral things like the legalities involved and the legal structure and all that stuff. I've got experts that we have relationships with. Anybody that comes into my real estate family, you should never have to pay for any other real estate investing education. I don't care what it is. I don't care how new it is. I don't care what it is. If you are in my real estate family and there is something that you want to learn about that we haven't covered directly, I will personally create a lesson and hold a community-wide meeting teaching that lesson on one of our Monday roundups. All right. Also, no one is ever going to be left out there trying to figure out what to do next. Okay. You guys are only marketing. So if you guys are having bad experiences, we're not going to be around very long. Right. And plus, I'm very proud of what we've done for people. I'm very proud of the reputation that we've built, and our reputation is our most valuable asset. My name is my most valuable asset. So we are obsessed about making sure people learn this stuff for as long as it takes. No rush, right? No pressure, but this is what we do. That being said, I think I'm about to wrap up. Any last minute questions for anybody? Let me see. Going over to Instagram. All right. Karen, if you asked a question, I left my desk. Oh, okay. Okay, Karen, she's so sweet. All right. People on the picture. All right. Okay, there. Okay. All right. So no more questions on Clubhouse, and I think we're good on the other ones. Sharon said, Otis, I need your number. Sharon, it's right there above my, oh, you can't see it, huh? Sharon, you can reach me at this one, 702. I'm going to put it in there. 702 710 8030. Not Karen, Sharon. Did I say Sharon or Karen? There we go. There we go. You could call it, you could text that number. If you guys call that number, though, it's going to be my AI answering. And then if you call it and I don't answer, you'll get a text message back saying, hey, we missed your call. What's up? All right. Otherwise, people just be calling me talking about, hey, just call to say hi. All right. All right. I think we're out. Let me see. If there's okay. We got that. All right. You guys can find us at 4datapoints.com. The number 4, DATAPOINTS.com. If you want to schedule a call, download the brochure, folks. A lot of the questions and calls that we get are they're answered in the brochure. It'll give you a realistic understanding of what it is you're getting. So just make the best use of the time. And Clubhouse, I'm going to let me end it on Instagram first, and then I will end the live stream on everywhere else. And I'm still on TikTok.